It is January 2022, which means it's Braille Literacy Month. And today we are sitting down with the CEO of Clovernook Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Chris Faust. I'm the president and CEO of Clovernook Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired.
Would you like to give us a little background information about yourself? Like, how did you discover Clovernook in a sense? What made you want to embody the mission and lead this company into the future?
Well, it's really an interesting situation, kind of how I got to where I am today, and I'm very happy with where I am today, which is great. But I had been working for for-profit companies prior to Clovernook, and I had worked with several organizations and some rather large ones, and I had been successful in those organizations. But I was always looking for something more rewarding. And one of the things that kind of hit me back when I was a child was I've had visual issues most of my life, and I was one of those children that didn't know they had a vision issue until literally the 8th grade.
Wow.
Basically, my brother was wrestling in high school, and my dad and I went to watch him wrestle, and we're literally within, say, 10 feet of the mat, and they use those big numbers to score the competition, and I guess I kept irritating my dad, asking him what the score was, and he's like, "Look at the sign, yourself." And I'm like, "What?" I couldn't see it.
Right.
And so I found out in 8th grade that basically I had very poor vision. It was an issue I had throughout school. I couldn't see the board, and I tended to be one of those children that kind of acts up a little bit because I had nothing else to do. I couldn't see the board and couldn't pay attention.
Right.
So, and so I've kind of dealt with that vision issue most of my life, and I'm still, without my glasses, I'm about a 2650. So unfortunately, I get to live that reality on a daily basis. And so at the time, I was looking for more out of my job, and I got a call from a recruiter about a possibility for a manufacturing manager. And so I went on the interview without even knowing exactly what it was for. And then when I got there and I found out that it was a nonprofit for people that are visually impaired, to me it's like, okay, there's a path I was chosen to be on, and this is it. It felt just right to me, and it did. It's allowing me now to help others deal with their vision issues and vision loss, and hopefully catch it at an earlier age than I did, and to help improve people's lives. And particularly when you look at what Clovernook does with the Braille production and literacy and the employment aspect, we're really providing people opportunities in their lives, and it helps shape their lives. And that's what I really enjoyed doing. So I actually believe that this is where I was meant to be.
Well, we appreciate everything that you're doing. I would really like to dive into Braille literacy. Let's talk about why is that important to the blind and visually impaired?
Braille literacy, to me and to this agency, is vitally important. And it's for reasons people may not necessarily understand. But if you're blind from a young age and you never learn to read or write, you're basically functionally illiterate. Because literacy is more than just the ability to read and write. It's the ability to take those skills to control what happens in your life. It helps you define your ability to have critical thinking, thought structure, and communication. And it allows you to put your thoughts in order so that you can effectively communicate. And there have been several studies that have shown if you have two individuals that are blind at a young age, one learns Braille, one does not learn Braille, it's been proven that most likely the individual that's learned Braille will do better in school, will go further in their education, will also more likely be employed, and more likely in their employment they're going to be in a higher paying job. And part of that has to do with their ability to communicate and structure their thoughts. And that is key. So it's more than just learning how to read a letter, but how do you compose your thoughts? How do you interpret the world around you, and then make sure you can convey to everybody what you're really thinking?
Well, thank you for breaking that down. I would like to talk a little bit about what does Clovernook Center as an organization do to support Braille literacy efforts locally, nationally, and worldwide?
Yeah, we are impacting the world worldwide. Our Braille production, the amount of materials we produce, which is over 30 million pages a year, that go across the country, go internationally, I think that is a very strong foundation for literacy. But our partners and the people that we work with, and talking to people around the globe about how do we improve their Braille production. You know, our agency has gone to Kyrgyzstan to help them set up a Braille print shop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been down to South Africa to speak on you know, Braille and how you institute it. And I think being a thought leader is what Clovernook can do, because we have such skills within our organization for Braille and Braille literacy that I think sharing that with the world is what we can do best.
Okay. Yeah, I have been thankful to be a part of, Clovernook's efforts as far as Braille literacy with working in the bindery. Which, speaking on the bindery, talk to us a bit about the Clovernook Center Braille Printing House and what type of things are produced there and how it improves the quality of life for the BVI community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we produce, as I said before, 30 million Braille pages, but what we produce that is so unique is we produce everything from magazines, books, Bibles, particularly children's books, and I think that's a key for us, is that we really, in the past couple of years, we've gotten into producing what are called print Braille books,
Mm-hmm.
which allows a child and a parent to interact as you would normally want to interact. So whether the child or the parent has a visual impairment, there is the normal sighted pages, and then we have clear Braille pages in between.
Mm-hmm.
So that way the two can interact and read together. And I think that's really what we have done the most with, is to create materials that allow people to live as they normally would like to live. And having those materials to be able to read, I think, is a foundation for that. And they're not relying on someone else to, tell them something or read something to them. They do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're very much about independence and the ability to do it yourself and to take care of yourself.
Well, you talked a bit about the print Braille book, and you mentioned that we do Bibles.
Mm-hmm.
We also do a variety of magazines that people may be familiar with. Would you like to name a few?
Yes, yeah, that's that's one thing when we do tours with people. One of the very surprising things to them is that we do well-known magazines: National Geographic, New York Times, ESPN, Rolling Stone. We do mainstream magazines, and we do them in a timely basis. So that way, again, we're providing materials to people that are blind or visually impaired that would be what you would consider normal in life and that people want to read and do.
Good stuff. To someone who may be listening to or watching this interview who may not know how to read or write in Braille, what advice would you give them? Why would you tell them it would be something that would be beneficial and important for them throughout their life?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I would tell someone that it is not easy to learn Braille. It's particularly as you get older in life. It's not necessarily something that is done quickly and without a lot of effort. But I do believe the rewards of learning Braille are well worth it, particularly for the independence and how it helps you control your life. That's what I think Braille literacy provides you. Again, going back to that critical thinking, it helps you shape how you're going to control your life. And I believe most people don't necessarily want to be told or directed, this is how you're going to live your life out. I think people want to be independent. They want to be able to provide for themselves and provide for others. And that's what I believe Braille literacy provides. So I think it is well worth it for people to take the time and effort to learn Braille, because it allows them to be part of society, and that's what makes us all feel good.
Absolutely. Well, the last question that I would like to ask is, what's next? What can Clovernook Center do to further support Braille literacy efforts? where do you see it going?
Yeah, I think when it comes to Braille literacy, one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to increase accessibility. And so I think that's what you're starting to see us do now. We just introduced with a local partner here in Cincinnati, TriHealth, on accessible business cards, which is allowing the use of QR codes with tactile elements so that a blind person can identify a card as having a QR code and know where it is on the card, and then use their phone to get the contact information. So I think being able to do that, and then also making more of the public and more of the society accessible to people with visual impairments through our arts and accessibility program with museums and art centers, being able to having it so that an individual can go into those facilities and read Braille or hear audio or feel the tactile of what's being presented in front of them, again, so that they can basically take in the same things in society that everybody else does. It's really all about that community engagement.
I love it. This has been very insightful. I really appreciate you for being a pioneer in the blind and visually impaired community. And also, thank you for sitting down with me in honor of Braille Literacy Month.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.
Everybody, have a great day.